Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. A special edition of Perspectives. It is Perspectives Prime. I am Brenda Batiste. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I trust everyone is doing A-OK, and we're all safely inside as 7 o'clock was 1 hour ago. So we have convened this very special edition of Perspectives, which we dubbed Perspectives Prime, because of course it's a prime-sized program, and we're also coming to you in prime time. So it is a pleasure to introduce our expert talk panel of Senator Christopher Deali and Mr. Byron Campbell. Of course, we're riding through tonight on this prime-sized edition of Perspectives. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Brenda. Good evening to our viewers. And I know our time, we're going to be tight with time tonight, so we're going to keep our comments low, very short.
Yes.
And I just want to quickly say that I was very impressed with the Prime Minister's speech and the relaxation of some of the restrictions we have, particularly for our small business people, medium and micro. I think that was a welcoming break, and I'm hoping that it goes beyond the 2 weeks that we have been given. Of course, a lot of that depends on our own people and their attitude. And quickly, I want to say that, the messaging that we have spoken about for the past few weeks, I'd like to see it change. I was talking to a good friend of mine today, and I believe one of the things we haven't tried yet and we should try is messaging through our playwrights and the cultural side of things. Have it through skits on the radio, bring the language down to a language that some people understand, because we've been talking a lot about language and science.
But what stops them from coming forward, though, or what stops them from doing it and presenting it to us?
I don't think nothing is stopping them.
Yeah, let's take some initiative.
So.
Yep.
And,
Sir Campbell?
Well, good evening, and all, and this is positive. I'm so happy to be here. Chris, I just want to mention that we've been talking about the psychological impact on the country, on people. And what I've seen is that now we're seeing a rollout of psychological support counseling in terms of how to coping mechanisms. And my staff was in fact had a 3-hour session with a professional counselor today. And it was revealing to hear how they were able to come out and talk about how they felt and the challenges they're having, and discussing various coping mechanisms. So I'm really impressed with that, and I would like to see more of this throughout the society, because I think this is something that we have to take very seriously.
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah.
Senator Deali, the beach is still 4 o'clock. You must be happy now.
I am, very. I'm going to attack it on Sunday.
You want to attack the beach? Anyway, folks, just in case you're wondering, aren't these the Monday morning people? Yes, we are the Monday morning people. But we are here tonight in live and in living color. And we must extend a hearty thank you to our Commissioner of Police and his team, the RGPF, for supporting the efforts here tonight and ensuring that we don't break the curfew. We're here for a special cause. So tonight we are going to be looking at, of course, our first wave of COVID-19 has dealt us a bit of a blow, and we are trying to get out of it, limping along, so to speak. But we really have to navigate a safe landing. And so tonight we are going to be speaking with, talking to many areas that in terms of impact. So we're going to look at the medical side of things. We're also going to look at the epidemiological side of things, the economy, fishers, farmers, busmen, small business, folks who run bars. And we're also going to talk to St. George's University, is a real key stakeholder in all of this here in Grenada, as well as an Undertaker. And we are going to talk to someone who is going through COVID at this time. So we have quite a bit of a panel lined up. We're going to be here with you until 10 o'clock, and this show is going to be moving. It is now an absolute pleasure to introduce our first panelist. They are Doctors Malara Alexis and Dr. Alexis. She hails from the village of St. Paul's. Of course, Alexis fame, her mom and dad raised her in that beautiful village. And Dr. Lisa Radix. She's from the bloodline of Nurse Radix, those of you who are generations before us, and also the bloodline of Auntie Jennifer Woodruff. Strong community, service, and from the wharf and the carnage. So we say good night to
Carnage.
Dr. The older people know the wharf. The younger ones know the carnage. All right. So we say a pleasant good evening to Dr. Malara Alexis. Dr. Malara Alexis is, of course, an infectious disease specialist and also an internist. And Dr. Lisa Radix is a nephrologist. Both Doctors Alexis and Radix, especially Dr. Radix, they are heading up a really special initiative as well for Grenada in the U.S., the COVID-19 committee that is sending help home. So we say goodnight to these two wonderful Grenadian women. And here I must say, and must plug the energy and the vibe, facta non verba, deeds, not words, the Anglican High School. So welcome to my AHS sisters and these wonderful Grenadian women. Good night.
Stop it, Brenda. Stop it.
Good night, Dr. Alexis, and good night, Dr. Radix.
Good night. Good night. Thank you so much for having me.
Right,
it's a pleasure.
It is an absolute pleasure to have both of you. Dr. Alexis, we're going to start with you. You left California, Southern California, and you came home here to Grenada to, assist with the efforts at the General Hospital. And we'd like to thank you immensely for that patriotic effort. Just share with us a bit of what you've seen since you're here and just how you feel about where we are at this time.
Okay. Thank you again for having me on the show. It's a pleasure, and just a pleasure to be able to be here. I mean, the circumstances are not great, but when we went through our COVID wave, where I work in Southern California, I knew the physical and just emotional toll it had on all of us, and I wanted to be able to support my fellow brothers and sisters here in Grenada during that. And it's so heartbreaking, being in the hospital and seeing the people, suffering from COVID-19, the patients, speaking to the employees at the hospital, the frontline workers, not just employees at the General Hospital, hearing the stories of the resilience, hearing the stories of just emotional pain. So it's I don't know if the word is privilege, but it did me good to be able to be here to support. And as you said before, there's a large group of physicians and other healthcare workers who are also supporting in different ways, even if they're not able to be here physically. So that was such a wonderful privilege also to be at the vaccine clinics and just to answer the questions and, just walking the streets where we don't have a lot of interactions, but just from afar, just being able to answer the questions that people have about vaccines and try to reduce that vaccine hesitancy that unfortunately we have here in Grenada and in other parts of the world.
Right. Dr. Radix, your specialty is nephrology. And here in Grenada, we have lots of folks who have issues with kidney disease. Talk to us, how people like that, the concern, how should they cope and deal with COVID?
Well, our group of patients, thank you, Brenda. Our group of patients are more vulnerable. They are elderly. They have diabetes and high blood pressure, which are the two leading causes of kidney failure. In addition, other things, hereditary things, polycystic kidney disease, and autoimmune illnesses. And so that puts them at risk of having very poor outcomes with COVID infection. In addition to that, COVID outside of kidney damage, if you presented without having kidney damage, 17 to 20% of the patients coming to the hospital have kidney dysfunction. That is with no history of kidney damage walking in. And then, if you look at the hospital group, about 35% of them, after they've been admitted, will go on to develop kidney damage. So as the disease gets more severe, the issue of kidneys being compromised becomes more pronounced. If you even go further and look at the patients that need critical care, the ones who get moved to an intensive care unit, the number is even larger. It's about 50% of those patients. And so at the end of it, on the other side, the ones who get better, 5% of them end up needing some sort of kidney replacement treatment afterwards. And even 50% of the ones in the hospital would end up with some form, some level of kidney damage. So if we thought we had a problem before with kidney disease, the news after this probably wouldn't be any better in the absence of protecting ourselves.
Right, so I will start with Dr. Alexis. Dr. Alexis, my question to you is this. Part of the hesitancy we're seeing now in Grenada is vaccination of our school children. It's a big topic for us now, and getting our children quickly vaccinated so that we get back to face-to-face schools. What is your view on this, and is there, from your understanding of the Pfizer vaccine, what is the risk it poses to our children between 12 and 17, and what is your advice to parents who have children that need to be vaccinated?
Yeah, so a lot of the hesitancy is in the adult population, and if adults are hesitant, it therefore trickles down to the children. Not necessarily saying the children are hesitant, but if adults are hesitant, they are less likely to want to give it to their children. But we just want to reassure the population that before the vaccine was given authorization for children, it was heavily studied. It wasn't just given willy-nilly, so that the benefit of the vaccination for children, we know for Pfizer it's approved for children from 12 and above. We know that the benefits of vaccination far exceeds any known risk. And we know the side effects of vaccines, which are common. You know, you have pain and swelling at the site. You can have that. You can have fever. You can have vomiting, diarrhea. These are some of the common side effects. There are also other side effects a little more serious than those, but again, they are very rare. We talked about the Pfizer vaccine having that incidence of myocarditis, but again, being very rare. The rate is 2.7 to 100,000. To every 100,000, it's 2.7. And, you know, a common thing I hear in Grenada here is people are saying, well, why are you not taking the vaccine? Oh, I hear the vaccine is killing people. And unfortunately, people are sometimes taking a personal experience. They heard, oh, somebody got a vaccine, and after the vaccination process, the person had some dizziness, and they say, oh, it's related to the vaccine, or they took the vaccine, and after the vaccine, the person couldn't walk. And some of these stories are not verified, and then again, some of these stories are not related to the vaccine. So unfortunately, there's a lot of rumors going around about this person took the vaccine and this is what happened. We are acknowledging that there are these mild side effects which do not cause morbidity or mortality, meaning they don't cause severe illness and death. We do know there are more important ones, such as myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart, but again, it's very rare. So for about 100,000 people, it's just 2.7. So this is reassuring data that tells us that the benefits of vaccination in the adult population and in children, the benefits is way, way, way greater than the risk, because we are seeing and continue to see not what COVID has done to North America and England, but we are seeing what it has done, to our beloved Spice country.
And a quick question for Dr. Radix. In Grenada, there's a lot of discussion about people who have recovered from being COVID positive and developing natural immunity, and the question of how soon they can be vaccinated after they have been tested positive. And of course, whether or not you get vaccinated after you're positive with natural immunity, how that reconciles in your ability to reduce the risk of being COVID positive, or if you become COVID positive, the risk of getting severe illness. Dr. Radix?
Thank you. I think I'm going to break that question into two parts. And the first part is the recommendation for when to take the vaccine after an infection. And, you know, plus or minus, the current recommendation is 14 days after your positive test, as long as you have no symptoms. If you have symptoms, you may want to extend it. If you continue to have symptoms, extend it a bit further, talk to your doctor. But that currently is what I'm seeing in the literature. The second part is, well, hey, I got infected. Why do I need a vaccine? Well, the immunity conferred by the natural infection does not last as long as the immunity conferred by the vaccine. And by that I mean, especially in patients with kidney disease and dialysis patients, we see the reaction, the antibodies that are produced after the vaccine levels starting to go down after about 90 days. And the immunity from the vaccine lasts a lot longer.
Yes, I agree to that. And if I would just add really quickly, there was a study from the CDC May to June this year, and it was a study people in Kentucky, and what they saw, especially in patients who had mild COVID, and that's COVID with mild symptoms or asymptomatic, meaning no symptoms, that their level of protection was much less than vaccinated. So they compared people who had mild COVID without any symptoms, and they compared it to the patients who were vaccinated. And they recognized that if you have mild symptoms, if you have no symptoms with COVID, your protection tends to be less than people who are vaccinated. So I agree with Dr. Radix where she's saying that vaccination has provided a greater level of protection, particularly in patients who have mild COVID and COVID without symptoms.
Thank you.
Now, this is not a question you posed, but that leads into the whole issue of the question of, is there going to be a second wave?
Right.
And it sort of feeds into that, the whole issue of needing to go ahead, even in the population who have been infected and recovered, to go ahead and get vaccinated to prevent the occurrence of a second spike.
That is true, because, for example, what we had in California, we had the original virus, and many people came down with it. And now we have the Delta variant, but the people who were vaccinated after that spike, they were protected against the Delta. So we don't want our population to feel, okay, it's going down now, we are off the hook, let's all just relax and forget about the vaccine. We need vaccination protection. So God forbid, if there is another variant, if there's another spike, our people are protected. We cannot afford to lose it now. We have to keep going with what we're doing here.
Excellent point, doctors.
Very briefly, doctors, very, very quickly here. The major cause of death, premature death for Grenadians is non-communicable diseases. Just the cardiotype alone takes up 30%. Given this reality that we face in Grenada, compounded with the COVID-19, what special challenges does it face for us as a nation?
Well, if I understand your question correctly, you're talking about the chronic diseases we have with COVID. I hope I understood it correctly. Yeah. And what I've seen before where I practice and what I'm seeing here in Grenada is that people who have these chronic conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney disease, lung disease such as asthma, heart disease such as, we call it weak heart, when we say high blood pressure, we mean pressure, diabetes, sugar, sickle cell. These are the people who are getting hit the hardest with COVID-19. So the fact that we have high rates, as Dr. Radix talked about, kidney disease, high rates of kidney disease, high rates of stroke, high rates of diabetes, high blood pressure, COVID on top of that gives us unfortunately, increasing incidence of people who get very severely ill. And unfortunately, there's this misconception where they have told me and have asked me, I can't take the vaccine because I'm complicated. I have sugar, I'm complicated, I have pressure, my kidneys are not good. There's this misconception that if you have these diseases, you cannot take the vaccine. We are saying as medical professionals that this is why you should take it, because when you have these things, pressure, sugar, heart, asthma, sickle cell, this puts you at higher risk.
And to add to that, if we look at just kidney disease is divided into 5 categories, and it progresses from 1 through 5. When you start to slide into stage 4 and 5 being dialysis, it is well documented that you go down 2 levels on the socioeconomic ladder, regardless of where you started, for many reasons. You're sicker, you can't work, you're sicker, you can't network, you're sicker, and you're spending a lot more of your finances on medications, treatments, etc. And so, again, if you just look at what happens in the dialysis population, and you sort of project to a wider set of people, you can sort of predict the same thing. After COVID, you're going to have long haulers, you're going to have more respiratory illness to add to the disease burden. And that is going to negatively, there's the potential there for it to negatively impact the economy.
Okay.
Indeed, indeed. Dr. Alexis, I wanted to ask, there's a lot of concerns about the technology. It still pervades the concerns on the time the vaccines, took to develop. People are not buying that the technology had moved along for these vaccines to be at this place, and the concerns as well about the mRNA and people who seem to be constantly thinking, well, it replaces my DNA. Can you address those?
Thank you. That's such an important question. So the Pfizer vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. So basically, we're not the traditional vaccines. You gave the person a weakened form, for example, or killed form of the virus, so the body learns to recognize the enemy. With the Pfizer vaccine, you're not given a weakened or dead virus. You're given instructions on messenger RNA. So the messenger RNA, the body uses it to make the protein that's on the surface of the virus. So it's not making the virus that causes COVID-19. It's just making that small protein that's present on the virus. And then the messenger RNA, after it provides instructions to build just that small part of the protein, it's broken down. It doesn't remain in the body. It doesn't integrate into our DNA. It doesn't affect fertility. It doesn't become part of us. It's broken down. It's the same thing with AstraZeneca. It's built on a different system, but the main probably difference is that with the messenger RNA, the Pfizer, which is messenger RNA, that is surrounded by a layer of fats. But with AstraZeneca, the instructions, which is the DNA, is surrounded or contained in a weakened form of an adenovirus, a weak virus that cannot cause disease. So basically, both vaccines provide instructions to the body to make just that small protein that's present on the surface of the virus that causes COVID-19. It's not making the entire virus, it's just making a small protein. And so when the body sees this protein, it learns to recognize how this virus that causes COVID-19, how it looks like. So when I come into contact with the virus, I already have memory cells and proteins to destroy it quickly. It does not integrate into our DNA. It doesn't remain in the body. There's a lot of false conceptions regarding that. And again, to speak to the technology, we are seeing that the technology was not discovered in 2019. For example, the technology behind the AstraZeneca vaccine was the same technology that was used to make an Ebola vaccine. It's the same technology. And this Ebola vaccine was FDA approved. So the AstraZeneca virus technology, it's the same technology that was used to make an Ebola virus vaccine, which was FDA approved. The Pfizer vaccine, mRNA, is the first time we're having the mRNA vaccine. But again, if you look back in scientific literature, this technology has been around for years and years. So the technology has not been just created now, it's been in the pipeline. I understand it's probably difficult for some people to kind of accept that, but the reality is the technology has been around.
All right.
And to add to that, something that's I find quite interesting. We're very concerned about the mRNA vaccines, changing our DNA, but the actual virus itself, I'm sure everyone has heard about someone who got infected and 8 weeks, 12 weeks after, asymptomatic, no symptoms, was still testing positive. And that's because the actual virus, it's a whole virus, it's not just piece that's put in the mRNA, in the vaccine. The actual virus was able to get into the genetic code and create particles and shed them. So if anything is actually going to dance with your DNA, it's the actual infection, not the vaccine.
Interesting.
The vaccine does not affect the DNA whatsoever.
Interesting. Before we let you ladies go, Dr. Radix, you in particular, just the work that the Grenada COVID Crisis Committee is doing, just to inform folks about that.
Oh, thanks, Brenda. So on the 10th of September, I'm part of a group of Institute of Further Education alumni. I'm dating myself. That's become CC. And it was mentioned in the chat that, I think Dr. Friday said, hey, why don't we get a group of doctors together to see if we could help? And I have been thinking the same thing. So I just texted her and said, are you free? And we spoke and we took it from there. We didn't think we'd get this response, but obviously we aren't the only people out there that love Grenada with a passion. We are now 68 physicians. We have 5 initiatives. The telemedicine multi-specialty program in conjunction with St. George's University. Most of our members are graduates. Boots on the ground, which Dr. Alexis was part of. We have a couple other physicians coming in later this month and some nurses. So that's telemedicine, boots on the ground, fundraising. We've raised over $100,000 to this point to assist. We also have gathering supplies and getting them to Grenada, and education, something we didn't intend to take on originally, but it's obviously needed. And a comment was made earlier about how you message, how you package the message and target certain people. And we're giving serious attention to that. Mr. Colin Dow has kindly agreed to be our coordinator and will guide us through this.
Wonderful. That's really great to hear. And I'm sure the rest of the panel here, we'd really like to thank you for those efforts. 68 doctors. Who would have thought COVID would have brought, a diaspora professionals together in this way to give back?
Right.
Yeah, wow. I'm impressed.
There is positive things from a crisis.
One correction. We also have pharmacists, public health experts, lab personnel. It's not just physicians. Yes, it's the majority, but we thought we needed to hear more globally, to get input more globally on how to address, the issue of how we could assist.
All right. Thank you so very much.
I'm so sorry. If you may just give me 30 seconds.
30 seconds, yes.
Vaccination is safe for pregnant and breastfeeding women. That has been studied. Article from New England Journal, over 35,000 safe for pregnant women and breastfeeding. And also, we are not just saying discard everything. We are promoting a healthy diet, exercise, water, nutrition, physical distance, mask, but we are saying vaccination is what is going to really power us through and help us to shut this pandemic down. Thank you so much for the extra seconds, and thanks for having us again tonight.
All right, thank you, Dr. Radix.
Same here. And same for patients on dialysis and patients with kidney disease. And thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us so much.
Thank you both for all that you're doing for us, and really appreciate you giving back in that way. We've been speaking there with Dr. Malara Alexis and Dr. Lisa Radix. We take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Get Vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
For persons with symptoms of COVID-19, testing is done within 5 days of the start of symptoms using a SARS-CoV-2 antigen test. If the result is positive, individuals are required to isolate for 14 days. Day 1 of isolation is the day of confirmation with a positive test. Retesting is not required for release from isolation. Once persons complete the required 14-day isolation, they can resume normal activities, observing routine public health protocols. If the result is negative, a PCR test will be done for confirmation. If the PCR test is positive, the individual is required to isolate for 14 days as above. If the PCR test is negative, the individual will be released from quarantine and can resume normal activities observing routine public health protocols.
Welcome back to Perspectives Prime. We thank all of you who are here with us this evening. And now from our medical doctors, we go to an epidemiologist. It's a pleasure to introduce from the big parish, I think Rivulet Lane it is, Mr. Jared Sincere. Good evening, Jerry.
Good night, Brenda, and good night to your other panelists. And to all the viewers, thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you, my old IFE schoolmate.
Getting worried about Brenda, it is EHS and IFE and, you know.
All the wonderful people I met in school.
Yeah. Is that deliberate?
Yes. Mr. Diali, Senator Diali, go ahead.
Mr. Sincere, good evening and pleasure to have you on the program. I'm going to first question to you is, you know, we're seeing these variants coming to us in recent time. We're hearing about Mu, we have Delta, we have Alpha, we have all the Greek alphabet apparently. What is your take as we look forward for the next 5 years? All the literature is saying this virus is going to be around. But in particular, do you, from where you sit, believe that we are going to get what people are alluding to as super variant coming that is going to challenge the vaccination protocols that we have now with the various vaccines of Pfizer and so on?
That's a very good question, and good night to you, Senator Diali. It's a very good question because I first of all back up a bit on the potential of the virus. There is great potential for it to mutate. I've read in one or two articles that possibly could be 44 to 55 different mutations that could possibly happen. But what we must be concerned about more so is how well are we dealing with the transmission. And when I say that, the faster we get to a point where we slow down the rates of transmission from person to person globally, we're actually slowing down the possibilities of it mutating to form what we may call a supervirus. Because every time the virus gets an opportunity to replicate millions of times, then the possibility of it mutating increases. So if we slow down the rate of transmission and we address the spread of it quickly, then I would say that potential would be lessened over time. But the potential is there. There has been two mutants, one in South Africa that would have moved towards Europe that has not caused as much a great impact as the Delta variant, and there's another one in Canada that they've already identified that were causing the spread, but again not as infectious as the Delta variant.
And we all know we have to live with this virus. Most of the literature is saying over the next 5 years or so. Do you believe that with the vaccination rates that we have worldwide, that the mutations are going to happen that are going to certainly challenge us over the next 5 years?
The vaccinations, Senator Diali, is one of the points of attack that we can continue to sound. That with increased uptake of vaccination, we're actually lessening the possibilities of mutations occurring. So that's an encouraging part of our whole fight of our strategies against this virus, deadly virus. And so what it has shown that vaccinated individuals are able to have a response by the immune system much faster And so the chances of the virus replicating to mutate is greatly decreased. So it's one of the approaches that we can use, hence the need for more individuals to buy into the vaccinations that we have available. It's not just about getting the disease, it's not just about contracting it, it's not just about spreading it, but it's also about how do we attack it globally to reduce that possibility of it mutating many times to become a supervirus. So it's one of the strategies that we can use to fight that potential.
Your specialization covers community education and general health policy. In Grenada, in terms of our vaccine uptake, the numbers are around 25%. There's high level of hesitancy or just persons refusing to take the vaccine altogether. Given where we are, what advice or what recommendations you'll make regarding our community education and general health policy to ensure that we have a higher uptake in vaccination and just adherence to the standards, protocols?
That's a very good question. And first of all, I would want to just back up a bit to lay a bit of foundational knowledge on the whole issue of vaccines. In 2019, WHO listed vaccine hesitancy as one of the top 10 challenges to public health. Now, that was prior to the pandemic. So the vaccine hesitancy globally has sort of drawn the attention of WHO for them to list it as one of the top challenges to public health. And so this is something that has been increasingly creeping up on us. And there are many reasons why. There's an increased visibility of anti-vaxxers. There's an increase in misinformation that is shared through social media. And so a lot of individuals tend to eat up that information, and it allows them to be hesitant. One of the underlying reasons why we can be so hesitant, it's a lack of trust. And I would just elaborate a bit on this. In this experience we've had with the vaccines, there are three main reasons I've identified that would have contributed to the lack of trust in accepting the vaccines. First of all, the vaccines are thought initially to provide what we call complete immunity against diseases, and that's our experience with vaccines prior to the COVID-19 vaccines. For example, the MMR vaccine, mumps, measles, and rubella vaccines that we give to babies, they tend to give a lifelong, very long protection against those diseases. In fact, diseases like mumps, the younger generation have no idea what it is. As a kid, I experienced what mumps the impact it could have had on an individual because I had mumps. But today, this is practically non-existent. So initially, when we were developing the COVID-19 vaccines, everyone thought that it was going to create that same impact where we have full protection. But with the mutation of the virus, we found out differently, that we got some protection and increased protection, but not full protection. In other words, herd immunity would not be as what we thought it would have been, and we would have what we have now, herd protection, but not necessarily herd immunity, because we have seen breakthrough infections, that is, individuals who were vaccinated and still were able to get infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And so as a result, individuals felt that they were betrayed, because we felt that, wow, vaccines are usually give full protection. So I've spoken to individuals who would refer to these as not vaccines because they're not getting full protections. But in an individual actually draw my attention to the definition of a vaccine. But that is not set hard and fast, because what a vaccine does is to give you an early warning for a strange organism that enters your body, so your immune system is able to mount a faster response. And that's key, because your immune system takes about 2 weeks to mount a full-blown response to a dangerous virus as this one. And 2 weeks is just too long in order for us to get to that point to fight that virus off. Hence the reason why unvaccinated individuals tend to experience more severe illness and higher rates of mortality. The second reason that contributed to the lack of trust was the fact that the technology, as Dr. Alexis just spoke about, the new technology and the mRNA technology. Individuals, once they heard mRNA and they heard nanotechnology, interpreted that to mean that they were, the scientists were trying to insert genes or genetic codes into our DNA. And so a lack of understanding of the biology behind what happens. The mRNA technology is simply taking a genetic code that is responsible for creating the protein that the virus normally produces. And so once that genetic code gets into our cells, the ribosomes are able to replicate and produce what we call a spike protein, which is a marker for or antigen for the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And as a result, when we get injected with that vaccine, the body mounts a response. So the technology was different, but from what we are accustomed to, but that has been researched for more than 15 years. Right. We were just waiting for that technology, the opportunity to use it. So of course, with a new technology, and it was like nanotechnology, because the capsule within which we had to place the mRNA is a very fat, in one of the instances, a very small lipid molecule to protect the mRNA, which is a very unstable molecule that could easily disintegrate. So it had to be capsulated in a very small molecule in order for it to get into our cells without them disintegrating, so that the ribosomes could have recreated the spike protein so that we can mount an immune response. The third reason was the time. Typically, we would have had many years in order for a vaccine to be rolled out globally, and in this instance, it occurred within a year. And so, as a result of that, again, there were three main reasons that I would have highlighted that contributed to the lack of trust. Now, if we are to get past that, because the trust still exists, and I believe from the authorities' perspective, finding out from the population what are the barriers that exist that prevented individuals or causes that hesitancy to accepting the vaccine would have allowed the authorities to tailor messages to address specifically what these barriers are, and to use stakeholders and community leaders and individuals who the population would have a greater trust in, because it has been proven that trust is a major pillar that contributes to hesitancy. And so when there is that increased trust, and I've just listed three main reasons why that could have been, messages and interventions to address them specifically could increase the uptake of vaccines. And if we get to between 65 and 80% coverage within Grenada, that would be a safe percentage to approach that would sort of protect us from a similar first wave, because we're going to have a second wave, but it could be a lot less if we are better prepared, not just with the protocols adhering to it, but in terms of the protection that is offered through the vaccines.
Okay. We quickly run out of time for you, Gerard, but I must ask these two questions. So quickly help me here. Just following up on your third point in terms of the time. Would you subscribe or do you believe that because of the improvement and the newness of technology, that no longer scientists had to travel from one end of the earth to meet up each other in another place, they could just transfer this information back and forth, the data about what they're doing in the various labs? Do you think that had anything to do with how quick it was because of the technology? And the second part of my question is this: based on the current sets of regulations and the things we are being allowed to do, if you were part of the team that had to advise the government on some of these regulations, just name the top three things you would do. You have 2 minutes, Jerry. Let's go.
2 minutes. I hope I could. All right. So to the second question on the regulations, I believe that the government within the restrictions that they were operating to balance economic activity with controlling the spread of the virus did the best to slow it down so that we can catch up with the rate at which infections would have occurred. I would have, first of all, increased my quarantine time. I thought reducing the quarantine time to 2 days was a mistake, from 2 weeks to 2 days. That somehow would have allowed for maybe a few slip-ups in not catching the individuals who would have come in with the virus. I would strengthen my focus on addressing the barriers that exist to the vaccines, which I think is pivotal at this point. I would pull in some individuals who are stakeholders who are trained in public health, not necessarily trained in medicine. There's a distinct difference here, because individuals trained in public health think differently from individuals who are trained in medicine. Public health specifically speaks to population health. And so that would be one of the major changes I would make. And thirdly, we have to continue to emphasize. I'm not hearing that continuous message on the importance of adhering to protocols. I believe that with the fact that the rates of infections are going down and the cases are going on, that we're going to get complacent and we can see an upsurge eventually, and that I'm concerned about. So those three things I would say we must focus on. Brenda, is my 2 minutes up?
Basically. You want to throw something in 20 seconds?
What, the first part of the question, what did you ask about?
I was asking about if you think that the technology had anything to do with the input,
good.
right? Yeah.
The technology. The technology, yes, I think that created a bit of a concern. But I could explain the time was much shorter, one, because we found that because of the situation globally and the impact it was having, that the researchers collaborated at levels that they never did before. There was more funding that was pushed into the development of the vaccine. The technology already existed, more funding, greater collaboration. There were more people available for the trials in the stages that we know. There are 4 major stages. The 3 is when we get to larger numbers, and then 4 to roll it out into an actual program. So these factors would have contributed to that.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much. I know there's lots more you probably want to share with us, but I'm sure we'll be talking to you again. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your expert and science with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you for the panelists who asked the questions. I really appreciate it, and have a good night to everyone.
All right. Thank you so very much. All right. That was Mr. Gerard Sincere. Coach Jerry is an epidemiologist, and he teaches at St. George's University. It's now time for us to switch gears. And of course, COVID, gentlemen, it's impacting the economy. And we need to just how we're getting out of this situation in terms of, so to give us some perspective on that, we have 2 special gentlemen with us, and it is our pleasure to introduce Mr. Richard Duncan. So Duncan is an economist. He's also the managing director of the Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited, and Senator Roderick Sinclair. He is the Fisher and former representative in the Senate. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Brenda, and good evening to the viewing and listening public. Thank you for having me on the program.
And thank you so much for having me on the program. And good evening to you, Brenda, and the panelists.
Nice. You gentlemen, your backgrounds, the roaring lion at the back there just looking on, and then that expanse of field behind Senator Sinclair. You gentlemen understood the assignment. Well done. Well done. So, Mr. Duncan, I'm going to start with you. We are in the 4th quarter of the year since 2020. Of course, everything we've had with the COVID situation. Where we are now, what are you seeing? We're doing budget consultations, all of that. So talk to us about the cracks you're seeing and the bright lights.
Okay, so thank you very much, Brenda. I just want to take time out to just make 2 quick statistical references. Nothing to do with the economy as such, but I think it will help us along the way. And it's to point out that COVID-19, because the context in which the question is being asked, is an invading force. It's a phenomena that we all are trying to understand. And what these forces do is to rob us of life and opportunities. So I looked at some numbers which told me that the invasion of Grenada in 1983 costed 113 lives. Another natural, well, a natural unwelcome phenomenon, two, Hurricane Janet and Hurricane Ivan cost us 154 lives. 120 in Janet, 34 in Ivan. As of yesterday, the COVID-19 invading virus has cost us 165 lives. More than 2 hurricanes put together.
Right.
So let's leave it on the side in terms of who died and all the loss and the method and so on and the grief and the pain and so on. And do these things have economic and financial consequences? We could identify that. So the numbers sort of help to put things a little bit in context. So what are we seeing? I'm seeing a stressed economy going through a period of what I call a wobbly recovery. Right? We will not be seeing in the next 12 months a strong, robust, consistent recovery. And why do I say that? Because recovery rests primarily on our ability to export goods and services. And our primary export, we all know, is tourism, travel, and all the things that go with that. So your cruise season, for example, starts around October. Well, this is October.
Yeah.
I've not heard the schedule. I've not seen a single ship.
No.
And then you also have your stopover visitors who come a little later, November, December, and into, March, April, as the case may be. So you have no tourism season to talk about. So it's in that context that I'm saying that the recovery is going to be weak and wobbly. Government spending will have to play a big part, and I think they have been doing their best in terms of the infrastructure projects and so on that are on play. And they do have some other private sector construction projects that will help with that economic recovery. But the real engine, then you have SGU, which based on how you look at it is like tourism, because foreigners coming here to live and to consume. It's a big, big part, and all the trickle-down effects we know. And congratulations to the leadership of SGU and the stance they have taken and effectively and graciously implemented with respect to mandatory vaccination has allowed the return of on-island face-to-face classes. If that is sustained and ramped up, then it will help. But we know that with this spike that we are going through, there have been some issues there. And then the lockdown that came, has set us back a bit. The small folks, right? Small farmers, the service providers, the hairdressers, the barbers, the retail shops, in the malls and so forth, they have all taken a beating, during this last period of lockdown. And I don't think they have recovered from the previous period. So as Senator Dialli would say, we in the private sector are no fans of lockdown. We do not support them. We think that they are a blunt instrument in terms of trying to balance life and livelihoods, and there are smarter and better ways of doing it. So that said, Brenda, is just in a nutshell, from an economic standpoint, meaning production, consumption, including export, I see on the horizon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being so open and sharing what you're seeing. You're definitely in a place where you are seeing what it is. Senator Sinclair, Mr. Duncan just mentioned about, export, the farmer, the fishers. What say you from that area?
Well, the first thing I want to say, Brenda, is in listening to the statistics of death, I want to, at the same time, express all my condolences and sympathies to those who have passed in this current crisis, because it in itself is also another challenge psychologically that is dealing with our persons in this country. In terms of and Mr. Duncan hit it right. Our farmers, fishers involved in agriculture sector are small. They can hardly withstand any serious shock, even a shock in price. So now we have a serious situation with markets at the local level, and we understand there are less individuals within the country. And so, for example, the poultry farmers, the fisher folks, the vegetable farmers, they operate within cycles, and that has been a hard hit for them. A lot of them are almost out of business. Of course, we have seen the government responded with various stimulus packages, and I will tell you, from the discussions and meetings and dialogue with all of them, they are asking me, Senator, where is this stimulus package? We are trying to access it, and we don't know where it is. So we're not saying it's not there. So that is a challenge. So the wobbly and the recovery that we want to have, for example, as we see the tourism sector is trying to open back, we'll have to be able to feed these individuals. How do we do that? And so you'll see us quickly wanting to go to import products, because our local farmers and producers don't have that immediate capacity to rise back up. And so this is something that we need the government to really work with us as the small farmers, small producers, fishers, to make this more accessible, so that we will see the sort of recovery that we really need, and to support the whole tourism sector, another business sector that is wanting to open. So that's one angle. And this is significant because what you see also happening is that the increase in freight rates, challenges with supply chains, would also increase the cost of any goods and food that we want to import into the country. So we might be penny wise and pound foolish in that we may want to say, okay, let's try and import, but we may find we have greater leakage in the foreign exchange. And inside of that, for the environmentally conscious persons, we'll see an increase in the whole issue of our carbon footprint for the food we eat. So we need to also try and consume more local food and able to be more environmentally friendly. That is in that context. And the other context, for where we have export opportunities, we know that as the tourism improve, we'll have increased freight arrangement for our goods to go out on the outside. At the same time, we have to be able to take full advantage of those things. So the issue of the lockdowns and so on would have also significantly affect a lot of the export operations, particularly in the fresh fruits and vegetables, and of course the commodities, and even the fishermen. And I will say that it's a breath of fresh air that the whole agriculture sector was given that green light as a essential service. And so acting responsibly, we were able to make a lot more inroads this round than the first round. That would be my first comment. I would respond to your question, Brenda.
All right, so let me take up lead and go to Richard and ask the question here. Based on what we just heard from Mr. Sensei, our previous guest, an epidemiologist, that they probably, with high probability, and we may see a second wave based on our vaccination rate and the aspect of how we control that. My question to you, Richard, is on mandatory vaccinations. Do you think that we first of all, were we slow to get there and have certain sectors as tourism? Second question is, as we move forward and to try and reduce a second wave or the impact of a second wave, do you think we should get more rigid with prescribing mandatory vaccinations for particular groups in our country? And I've always articulated security, frontline workers, customs, immigration, care, elderly care facilities, and so on. What is your take on that situation with the mandatory vaccinations?
Okay, so Senator Diallo, let me start off by saying that I am fully vaccinated. Well, people have a saying when they don't have good food, take in front. So as a cancer survivor, I went in front. My wife, as a retired nurse, diabetic and hypertensive, is fully vaccinated. And we thank the government for bringing in the Pfizer. So my daughter, who is asthmatic and 17, is also fully vaccinated. Vaccinations for me, and for all that have been exposed to are necessary, they are effective, and they are safe. At the same time, none of us in this fight is safe until all of us are safe.
Absolutely.
Except for the people who were bedridden and housebound or institutionalized. Few people who are COVID positive could pinpoint with any certainty where they pick it up.
True.
Few. So it is for your own good and the good of your fellow man to get vaccinated, because it is, for now, our best defense. They are safe, they are effective, and they are necessary. So yes, Senator Diali, personally, I'm a proponent of mandatory vaccination, because the debate to me is now ended as to the extent to which individual rights can go at the expense of the rights of the community, the greater good of the entire community. So this virus has proven that the wall is there. And some of the biggest democracies, right, have come to that point, right? It took a while for different reasons, but I think from our understanding as economists and what it takes for us to come out of this crisis, which is a public health crisis that has public finance, because we didn't go yet in terms of government finances, implications requires all of us to join the fight. As to which sectors are priority, that is another public policy decision that the authorities have to make, and you could learn from the different countries that went before us. So for example, no strange reason, when the vaccine first came out in the States, the first place they went was in old people's home. There was a reason for that.
Yeah.
We did not go there, right? We stand by and a whole style of them. Yeah, right. The reality is, folks, the government has to lead. Civil society, trade unions, trade associations have to join in that fight and in that voice to say, folks, this is the surest and best way out of this crisis. Look around the world and see those who have gone before you. And how have they done it? And let us find smart ways of getting that done. So, for example, you ask about the healthcare workers, and I think TAMCC, for example, the youths have to be allowed to go back to school. So TAMCC for me is a prime candidate for mandatory vaccination. There are youths who are otherwise talented. Through this lockdown and online, we will lose them. We have lost them already. We have lost them. We know that this online thing is not the most effective way. Right? So let us do what has to be done. Be creative, continue to educate, continue to advocate, bring people along, but it is better that we lock some people out of the economy than they lock down the entire economy. So the strategy of vaccination for this sector, for that sector, for this activity, it is necessary. Locking people out is better than locking the economy down. And you talk about the second wave, of course there'll be a second wave, right? I'm not a medical practitioner, but we heard them earlier on, that those who believe they have natural immunity and might be dropping their guard could find themselves in a difficult space. Those who have taken the honey and ginger this last surge and probably escape again, you will feel victorious and strong. You could drop your guard, and these are the people who I believe can be impacted. So I'm encouraging people, folks, to do what we have to do. So a vaccine mandate should not be impacting very many people, because the majority of people have made their contribution to this fight and to the cause.
Thank you, Richard. My question to Senator Sincere is a quick and simple one, and that is, Senator, when you look at what is happening with the supply chains and the logistics and all that is preventing our traditional imports of food across all sides, vegetables, normal cereals, milk, cheese, and so on. Is there room for our farmers to get more scientific and more business-like in their approach to production planning and so on to support? No. And is there an opportunity? No, for us to invest in agriculture in this particular way so that they could meet the shortfall. We had an issue with eggs recently. I mean, we can't tell fowl when to lay, but I mean, and it doesn't know when the season high or low. That's the reality. But do you see an opportunity here, a burning opportunity for us to get our farmers and our fishers up to the point where we say, listen, guys, let us plan properly, let us produce according to that planning so that when the logistics and the thing come back, we are in front and we can deal with the situation?
Excellent question. And the question has to happen again. I see the same effort we are taking to have our COVID team and so on, looking at the medical aspect of this country. We need to also have another team looking at the whole food and feeding ourselves. And that has to involve not necessarily government, but government facilitate. And when you have the supermarkets, the hoteliers, etc., in concert with the farmers, fishers, looking at what the demand would be, how much they would need, what sort of prices we can work on, what are the inputs and so on that we need. So we develop some key supply chains within the country for, if it's vegetables, for fruits, for meats, for as the case may be, and we say, okay, let's give ourselves 6 months. Let us see what we would achieve within that time, so that the local hoteliers, etc., supermarkets and other persons know exactly where their food will be coming from. We have guaranteed markets. And I believe that this is something that, this is something that can happen once there is commitment from the buyer's end, and the farmers will always produce when they have markets. Of course, it's an opportunity for us now to look and see how we can introduce certain specific technologies, not only in terms of the production, but also in terms of the information to guide those processes. So if a farmer plant 200 tomatoes, then you know that this should come in a certain time. You can see this on some screen, and everyone knows where that tomato that is grown in Lafayette or in Tivoli, where it's going to be in the next 3 or 4 months. And yes, there is opportunities for that. And I think it is important on the government, and of course, in my position, which I'm always prepared to facilitate, to have a team, a working team, that involves supermarkets, hoteliers, farmers, fishers, poultry, meat, etc. But 9, so that each sector is represented. And we sit down with strong commitment. We may not be able to supply 100%, but we say, okay, let's try for 50%, and let's go for it in the national interest. It's the same effort that we are putting into whether we vaccinate, or whether we do protocol, or whether we lock down. It's the same effort we have to do for our food, because we must not take this thing for guarantee. Other countries having challenges, and we need to secure our own security, and that also would provide the sort of employment, as we would have discovered. Our small farmers, and it's a worldwide statistic, provide up to 30% of food in the world. And of course, the small businesses, which would generate the sort of support services to these same small businesses, provide employment for another 30% of the population. So by doing this, we are getting a lot of wins, and also working in harmony with of course, the increased tourism factor.
I hand you over now to the agricultural specialist on the panel.
No, but I just want to make a comment about Richard's statement reaction. And I don't usually give an opinion here, but I have to say that I fully endorse, support Richard's position here. Absolutely. Thank you, Richard, for that. Senator, we're in the pandemic. You recently were involved in the consultation, budgetary consultation, 2022 budget consultation. Clearly, as we heard, the pandemic is going to be with us for the next year. What were some of the recommendations you made in terms of for the farming sector for 2022 in the pandemic environment?
Right. In short, we look at some of the key sectors. So, for example, in fishing and CMOS, we have great opportunities along those areas, and how we can have drying facilities such that we can better able to produce more CMOS, especially because if rain comes, that's an issue, and also how we can produce more local confish, because we also import a lot of saltfish. So that is one area that we looked at. We also discussed the issue in terms of nutmeg and cocoa. We are seeing increased demands and requests for those products. We have a lot of abandoned fields. We need to work along with the government to have a special program to revitalize those, so that in 2022, we can able to see increased revenue, but also increased employment at the farm level. The other aspect we also look at is in terms of the technology. For example, we spoke about, and I spoke about that earlier on, for the government to facilitate, to provide that national digital platform that could facilitate market information, production information, and planning. That's another aspect. We also need to unlock specific funds for agriculture. We have funds for roads, we need funds to support the whole agricultural resuscitation that will be able to make this other difference and support that same platform that we speak about to coordinate production. We also have some other discussions in terms of vehicles. That's another important point, because what we see happening is that we have the current situation with the concession. If someone is buying a new vehicle, they get the farmer 100%. But there are some farmers who cannot afford the 100% cost of a vehicle, a brand new vehicle, but they get 75% duty. So that, we think, is a little bit favoring the new car dealer and sort of putting the farmer, which the intention it is to help the farmer. Now, only today, I also got another discussion with a farmer saying, look, bro, why is the government saying about this 10 years and so on, understanding the issue of the environment? For the farming community, having maybe, I say, a 12 or 13-year-old vehicle for the farming community, that we think should also help us in that whole restriction. We also need to look at the issue of the flowers industry. We must support this, because flower will tell you that there's a lot of opportunity in the tourist sector for floriculture. That's another big area of opportunity. And of course, we have to keep focusing on value addition. This is very important. So, for example, in poultry, how do we get centralized processing for our small farmers? How do we get centralized processing for our livestock? Because that is another area. Yes, we have the abattoir, but we also need to have more production, introduction of new breeds. So these are just some of the areas that we would have presented there in the budget
Senator.
consultation.
And again, I just want to congratulate you on your 1-year anniversary of serving as a senator for the sector.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you
Mr.
so
Duncan, I
much.
can't let you go. I want you to respond to this. You have 20 seconds to respond to this. I'll read quickly. It's a quotation from someone. I'll say who they are at the end. I want to make the point that we are moving towards dropping the state of emergency, the curfews, and eliminate most of the restrictions as we can by the end of the year. We are not going into 2022 limping and creating more stress and strain for the economy. That was Prime Minister Gaston Brown in Antigua. What say you, Mr. Duncan?
No, I agree with Mr. Brown. Again, I repeat, vaccines are necessary, effective and safe, and we have to ramp it up. At 22%, 25% at this stage, we've been a protracted period of unnecessary distress. And while I like to tell people the pandemic will be over, the issue is the carnage it will leave in its wake. And our role is to try and minimize that.
Yeah.
The show way, yes, we pray, yes, we spiritual, vaccination, your protocol, everything. We have to throw everything at it. And the biggest and best thing we could throw at it is vaccination. So I'm a big supporter, and mandatory vaccination for some sectors. That's the only way we're gonna pull through with minimal damage, reduce carnage, psychological, emotional, and economic.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much, gentlemen. We really appreciate you taking the time to share with us this evening, Mr. Richard Duncan and Senator Roderick Sinclair. And Senator Sinclair, congratulations again on your 1 year as a senator. You're doing very, very well. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And stay
Yeah,
safe
thank you very
now.
much, Brenda.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
So that was Senator Roderick Sinclair and Mr. Richard Duncan. And we roll on. It's now time to introduce from St. George's University, the Associate Dean of Admissions, Mr. Colin E. Dow. Good evening, Colin.
Good evening to you, Brenda. Good evening to Chris and, of course, Byron.
All right. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Yeah. Always a pleasure to join you guys.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Yes, so Colin, I am going to start you off and I'm going to throw a very controversial question at you.
Well, hold on a second. You sure start me off or you're going to ask me a question?
What is your take on mandatory vaccination for our secondary school students now that we have a Pfizer that could vaccinate children 12 and upwards? Yeah. And I won't ask you that for SGU because I know your situation. I'm asking for now to get back to face-to-face for our secondary school children. Would you support mandatory vaccination for them?
My response will be twofold. One, I think we're losing a generation. I am extremely concerned about our students. I am worried, frightened. I mean, I could use a number of adjectives because they've been out of school too long. They do not have the access and they've been suffering. And those who have access, not all of them are able to do well. So whatever is necessary to get them back within the classrooms, we must do it. We just have to do it because we cannot afford to sacrifice this generation of children. One. Two, I would tell you that my 14-year-old is fully vaccinated. That should answer it.
Right. Let me get to SGU now. The relevance of SGU to our economy is between 25 and 27% of GDP. The school took a decision to, I think they was supposed to announce this week here the situation based on the spike we're having and what the decision will be for students to continue it face-to-face. Could you give us any update on that situation? Because it has economic implications for a number of businesses in our country.
Yeah, and that's fine. The university community was advised by the Vice Chancellor yesterday that on Monday, the 11th, Monday coming, we'll return to in-person classes on campus. We took the decision to move to remote learning simply because of what was happening in Grenada. You cannot deny the fact that our students are in Grenada and of Grenada. So they were moving around within a community where there was spiking. Yes, we had permission to have in-person classes, but it was irresponsible as an entity in order to continue that mass movement of individuals, which includes Grenadians, coming to campus, moving back and forth when the government protocol was saying, hey, let's hold steady. Let's shelter in place until we get a handle of this particular spike. So we moved to remote learning in keeping with the government protocols. Now that we have seen easement coming from the regulations yesterday, we announced, likewise, yesterday afternoon, we return to face come Monday.
Excellent. And my last question is something I know is very dear to your heart and to mine as well. The whole issue with TAMCC and getting TAMCC students back in classrooms, and of your take on whether or not, again, we should insist that all students in the new academic year and continuing should be fully vaccinated.
Again, I mean, I use my own example. As Richard did previously, he used himself, which as a demonstration of the position. I agree with Richard that the vaccines are safe and they're effective. There is no question as to whether or not the vaccines reduce morbidity and mortality. And for that reason, it is important that everyone who is eligible to take the shot should take the shot. Again, it is not only my secondary school students and my primary school students who are suffering. Those who are in college, likewise, moving into a new environment. And this one is quick pace. It's 2 years. 2 years, and then you do terminal exams. Interestingly, you do terminal exams at the end of each year for those taking the key. And they have been out of school. If you look at those who are now in year 2, this October, because we're now into October, for all of last year, they were out of the classrooms effectively without that type of engagement. And we have to make the decision and have decisive leadership on getting those students back into classrooms, obeying the protocols. As much as we can distance, yes, we distance. Face masks, they work. Hand sanitizing, they work. And they are actually, let's say, the #1 preventative measure against the COVID virus. Let's use those. Let's use the vaccines because it's also in our toolbox to get the students back into the classrooms, learning in a way that they can meaningfully and fruitfully benefit from the instructions that the teachers are trying, but they're challenged.
Yeah. Talking about students, would students be returning to the classrooms at SGU in January 2022, Colin?
Just circa about a month ago, we made the announcement that we will again be having a hybrid situation come January 2022. Hybrid meaning that there will be an online option, but there also will be face-to-face instruction on the True Blue campus. Of course, we will encourage those who can come to campus to come. So our default position, as was the case in August, is that you're coming to campus. You will have to submit an explanation as to why you cannot come to campus if you're choosing to remain online. And I will say this, is that we have access to vaccines. Not everyone has access to vaccines. Then they will still have challenges with travel because it has been difficult. I heard, for example, the U.S. Embassy in Barbados is closing for the non-immigrant visas. Yes, and likewise, as our students would have to transit from all over the world, passing through the UK, passing through the US, coming through Canada, if they are able to get the necessary visas and documentation to get here, they aren't able to. And we therefore must provide an online option for them. But it will be hybrid, face-to-face, and remote, January 22.
All right. And also, will SGU continue the mass testing for the entire SGU community?
Well, you know, we will do it as is necessary. I mean, testing is not a style, right? But we will do it as is necessary. So with this call for return, employees, because as we move to remote learning, we also said to employees, if you can work from home, work from home. Come Monday, everyone returns. Students return to face-to-face, employees return 100% to campus. What we will do is have on that return rapid test, the antigen test, just to get a sense as to where our population is at, positivity rates for the COVID virus. It also will ensure that we don't prompt a situation where there is an infected person who comes onto campus because we mandate it, and then there is a spread. And let me just share this, Brenda. We are an organization, we're a business, yes, but we're an academic institution.
Correct.
We're an academic institution with the Department of Public Health and Preventive Medicine. You heard from my colleague, Gerard Sincere, earlier. He's not only my colleague with work, I must confess, we were in the same benches Form 1 to Form 5, and then we went off to do A-levels, chemistry, biology, and math, sitting in the same benches. So we sat in the same bench for 7 years, right? But you heard him as an epidemiologist speaking to the necessity and studying, using the evidence to make data-driven decisions. Our employees, for example, come from all over the island. So a good snapshot of what is taking place in Grenada is by SGU doing testing, because we will get a sense, and we collaborate very closely with the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Health will also be able to get a sense as to what is taking place at this time within the general population. So as a responsible organization, as we return, yes, we will have testing for the population. As you're well aware, when we called for the massive return at the beginning of this spike, we mandated everyone get tested. Over 3,500 tests conducted, 15 individuals tested positive. Yeah. Less than 0.5% of the university population tested positive. Yeah. And likewise, on the return, we will do testing.
You guys really did prove the point. Thanks for hammering that home. Mr. Campbell?
Colin, as an educator, you articulated very clearly the implications for our students in the present dispensation, being home, and the limitations with the online learning. In the SGU case, you ensured as an institution, the entire environment, faculty, students were vaccinated. While we were discussing a minute ago with Chris the question of students being vaccinated, no mention was made of the faculty, meaning the teachers, all the workers, the cooks, in other words, the entire environment. Because what is your take on this? What is your policy recommendation looking at the public education system going forward in the pandemic to get our students back to school?
Well, if I'm to put on my SU hat, I would tell you, everyone crossing the gate to come onto the True Blue campus must be fully vaccinated.
Correct.
So whether we're talking faculty, we're talking staff, we're talking the administrative team, we're talking students, we're talking our vendors at the restaurants, etc. We're talking the construction workers, because we do have ongoing construction taking place on campus. Everyone fully vaccinated. Good. Now, we also know that the science says being vaccinated would lower the period within which one can be infectious. I'm not the epidemiologist, that's my friend Jared Sincere, but the science is out there. It therefore means that getting vaccinated not only protects you, your health and survival, but also reduces your chances or the length or the period within which you can transmit. And if one is going to move in to a situation which is necessarily crowded, a classroom, and I'm going to use the word crowded loosely, then it seems to make sense as well to have those individuals likewise vaccinated. Now, I am not downplaying the necessity of wearing the mask, etc. We ask people, for example, who are positive to isolate at home. So it is possible for individuals to share a similar space and not infect others in that space. I'm using that to argue that it is possible to have school and we should move towards having school. But I'm saying that it also, in order for us to give us ourselves a better chance to do so safely, then use of the vaccine is an important tool that we have in our arsenal until we can get the drugs, etc., to combat it.
All right. Thank you so very much, Colin. Before we leave, through us, we just want to extend our thank you to St. George's University for being a real good partner in this effort as you continue to volunteer, research, and everything, contributing to the economy and everything you're doing to continue to propel us forward. We trust that this will build
as you thank us, let me just thank the university community. I am Grenadian. I'm in Grenada. I'm of Grenada. You guys know me. And it really is heartwarming to see how the SU community, I will start from non-Grenadians first, who have volunteered of their time and the resources to assist Grenada during this pandemic. Critically important, as individuals who are grateful for the education and training that they got in Grenada, from the pop-up clinics around the island to the sending of medical equipment, etc. But in the recent weeks, it was like a proud father looking at our young physicians, SU grads, stepping to the forefront, sharing of their training and specializations, making a difference. It has been heartwarming. I know early on tonight, you had two of our graduates, Dr. Alexis and Dr. Radix. I was tempted to say an old grad and a young grad, but I know I'll get in trouble for saying that. I wouldn't say which is which. So we have one who's based in Grenada, one who's based outside of Grenada, but both ensuring that they contribute to deliver Grenada out of this pandemic. Absolutely. And I just, as an administrator, would like to say thank you. We are proud of you, and we have to continue working together to ensure that we deliver Grenada out of the challenges that we currently face to a better, stronger Spice Isle.
Indeed, we have to deliver Grenada out of the challenges we currently face. Thank you so very much, Colin. Truly appreciate it. Truly appreciate you. Our best wishes, and thank you for coming on this evening.
Absolute pleasure. Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
This is Perspectives Prime. We have so much more program for you. Please do not go away. We take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Miss Arlene Friday from the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association. She's been spearheading the efforts, especially the huge volunteer efforts you've seen. And we're speaking to Grenada's #1 volunteer as well. You're going to see who that is when we come back.
For persons with symptoms of COVID-19, testing is done within 5 days of the start of symptoms using a SARS-CoV-2 antigen test. If the result is positive, individuals are required to isolate for 14 days. Day 1 of isolation is the day of confirmation with a positive test. Retesting is not required for release from isolation. Once persons complete the required 14-day isolation, they can resume normal activities, observing routine public health protocols. If the result is negative, a PCR test will be done for confirmation. If the PCR test is positive, the individual is required to isolate for 14 days as above. If the PCR test is negative, the individual will be released from quarantine and can resume normal activities observing routine public health protocols.
Get vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back to Perspectives Prime, everyone. If you're just joining us, we thank you so very much for joining us this evening. Those of you joining us on television, I know it's been a bit late, but thank you. I was looking into the wrong camera. If you're joining us for the first time this evening, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure now to introduce our next panelist, Miss Arlene Friday. Arlene is the Chief Executive Officer with the Grenada Hotel and Tourism Association and Grenada's #1 volunteer. Yes, he even made it in the Prime Minister's National Address yesterday, Mr. Randall Robinson. Good evening, Arlene and Randall.
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening.
All right, it's a pleasure to have
Lovely
you
to be
as
here,
well.
yes.
So, Arlene, firstly, with your GHTA hat on, we saw that we had Spice and the Royalton reopened last week. That was really good news. Just give us some semblance of what's happening in the GHTA community.
Well, we're thrilled. We're thrilled. You know, it's been a long wait, as everyone knows, to first of all see Spice Island Beach Resort reopen, you know, after such a long wait. So we are more than thrilled that they are back. We're also thrilled to see the Royalton reopen after having to close last year after being open for 1 month. So I think it's good news for our industry. I mean, it's the positivity that the positive news that we need right now, you know, and in terms of all that we've been going through, just to see that more people are at work. More people, we hope, will be coming to our shores. So I think this is really good news for us right now.
Okay, great. Just as an overview, what is the next, what are you hearing from your hoteliers as it relates to how the next couple months look for them in terms of their forecast?
It's been challenging, you know, to say the least, you know, and I think that's what everyone has been talking about this evening. Mm-hmm. You know, the challenges that we have gone through, you know, due to the pandemic. You know, we've been like the first one hit and probably the last to recover through this pandemic. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been suffering through, and, you know, through it all, we've had to continue to innovate, adapt, you know, gird our bellies, so to speak, you know, grit our teeth just to make it through. And so we're hopeful that, you know, as more and more people get vaccinated, and you've heard that tonight, that we also believe that that's the way forward, that we're hoping through vaccination that we'll be able to turn a positive corner for our industry in the next few months.
Okay, wonderful. Randall, you, from the very beginning, I know you have been very, very strong, and you felt very early that, you know, vaccination was really the strongest tool that we had in the kitty, and that, you know, more of our people should, you know, have gone out and gotten vaccinated. And then we came and we had this serious situation, and you know, you rose and went out and volunteered and just kept doing it. And I know, you know, we see you volunteering, but, you know, I'm also aware of a lot of things that you're doing behind the scenes to assist individuals. So, you know, this evening we want to commend you and just share with us why you felt so moved to just jump in and do all of this.
Well, you know, Brenda, I haven't worked really since March of last year. I could say when the last ship came in on March 10th, you know. And you know, I'm in the tourism sector. And so it's been rough, you know, it's been rough for a lot of people. I mean, you know, my employees, so to speak, there would have been, what, 15, 16 of us. And nothing has been happening, you know, since then because of this COVID. And you look around because you go around and Brenda, you see people despairing. And if you pay attention to what's happening on social media and you see behaviors that you're not accustomed to coming from people that you know you least expected from, you realize that there's something going on. And a lot of people are under a lot of pressure. So, you know, seeing that, and you know, you just have to dig deep within yourself and find a way to help. So I have good friends, you know, people who think like me, who want to do stuff. And the first for me is the music. So I thought, you know, and you would have noticed over the year and so on, I would have done some songs and, you know, little impromptu concerts at Christmas and Easter and so on, just to try to help to raise people's spirits. But we had to move beyond that into the physical help, wherever it is that you can find something, because there are people all around you who really need physical help, a hand up, right? Not necessarily a hand out so much as a hand up, and to help where you can, because a lot of people are out of work. And so, you know, I got together with a few friends, and especially I wanted to mention Rita, Augustine, and Randy here, because when we did that little concert for the frontline workers' sake, and Rita said, you know, we have to move beyond that, Brando, because people are they need stuff. We need to help, especially the frontline workers. They've been working so hard and they haven't had time. You know, nurses have been working, and doctors 12-hour shifts and so on. They haven't had time to properly prepare for themselves, you know, on the job and so on. So let's do something for them. And so for the last three weekends, we have been you know, doing stuff. People have donated stuff, and we have put together packages and so on, carried for them, and they've been so grateful. And then, you know, we heard, well, you know me in the politics, and we heard the leader of the National Democratic Congress speaking with the leader of the New National Party and our Prime Minister, Dr. Mitchell, and a number of things that were decided upon. And the call was there for us to go out and to assist, you know, with the pop-up clinics and all of that. Get involved, Brenda, because, you know, I have been a proponent of the vaccine from the very beginning. Correct. From the time the vaccines came out, and we knew that this was the only way to get us out of this crisis that we are in, then that's what it had to be. And I don't understand the hesitation. For the life of me, I really don't. Because, you know, if we were to go to the doctor and the doctor say, well, you had to get a Zugu, and you will turn around and take your Zugu because you know that is what is going to make you better. And Brenda, there are a lot of people in Grenada with comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension. You know, a lot of us are overweight, and when we say overweight, you know, some people are overweight and fit, but some of us are really not fit. And COVID is taking a toll on those, and people with lupus and people with asthma conditions and so on. You know, you really just have to go out, you know, knowing that this is underlying here, and this is where COVID seems to want to attack and to make you sicker than most. Then, you know, you just had to be in the front line, so to speak, of getting the vaccines. And I don't understand the hesitancy. But I thought, look, let me get out there, because we need help. We need to be able to talk to people. We need to be able to convince them. We need to show them the science. We need to educate them. And the best place to do it is to sit on the front lines, and where as people come, you know, you get to talk to them as well. It's one thing on social media, it's the other thing to out there, not really pressing the flesh, if you understand, because we have to maintain distances, but at least be engaging people in conversation and making them feel more comfortable about the decisions that they're making. Because we are realizing that people are coming in, they're coming to be tested, and you really have to talk to them beyond the test to go and get vaccinations, to go and get vaccinated. And in a lot of instances, those little talks, those little interactions really help, you know? And so we have to get involved, Brenda. Those of us who care about our people, we need to get involved.
Absolutely. And thank you for doing so.
Ronald,
You're welcome.
Ronald, I want to congratulate you on your volunteerism. And after listening to you, I'm convinced that you have absolutely no political ambitions. And I know you're not mixing politics with volunteerism also. But I'd like you to tell us how we can get more people involved in what you're doing and volunteering themselves, their services. But also the important point, as you mentioned, your stance on the vaccine. Do you believe that political parties should have a policy on the vaccine and vaccination?
Well, you know, political parties have to think in terms of what is best for the nation. What is best for the nation? Is what is happening now making any sense to you? Is this good for the nation with so many people hesitant? And I believe what we really need to do, you know, the same way we were moving around, Byron, with the what was it, the Constitution, you know, those little meetings that we went out into every little village and so on and had meetings with our people and to speak to them about you know, the constitutional changes. It's the same way we need to get out there, not necessarily the politicians, but to trot out the professionals who could sit down and speak with villagers, hear them one-to-one, the same way we encounter them at the pop-up clinics, the same way we can go and have a sit down with them and say, look, this is what is going to get us where we need to go. And hear from them what their frustrations, what their issues are, and so bring them around the table with us. Bring them to an understanding that you're not taking the mark of the beast. You know, this is not going to kill you, and this is not going to all these negative things that you're seeing. But to point out that this is your best chance, and taking the vaccine will, you know, I mean, will avoid you having to go to the hospital, will avoid you probably dying from this disease. You know, we have to have that kind of conversation, and you know, it can't be done virtually. It has to be, we have to be there with people, feeling them out. They must feel us, we must feel them, so that engagement is going to get us over that hurdle, you know. And I'm really surprised that we have not been doing much more of that. You know, the same way we're out there with the vaccines and with the testing, we need to be inviting people to sit and to talk. And I think we will get over the hump with that, you know.
Does your affiliate party have a policy on the vaccine? The NDC?
You mean the National Democratic Congress on the vaccine?
Yes.
Yes, the National Democratic Congress has always articulated the fact that we believe that vaccinations are the only way out of this crisis, as we see the only way out at this point. Yes, we want you to do all that is necessary to keep yourself safe, but the only way for us to turn the table is for us to get vaccinated, as many of us as possible. We really want to get everybody vaccinated who are eligible to be vaccinated.
And do you support mandatory vaccination for some sectors?
Pardon me?
Mandatory vaccination for some sectors?
Well, I can't see it any other way. Byron, look, we lost 130 elderly people. We lost people in nursing homes and so on. I mean, you know, how do we not say that, you know, if you're going to be dealing with elderly people, or certainly people who are going to be susceptible to the ravages of this disease, that you don't protect. If you don't want to protect yourself, at least protect them from it. And to do that effectively means that you need to be vaccinated. And so I can't, in good conscience, not support mandatory vaccines in certain sectors. I mean, it just has to happen. We can't continue to be losing our elders and the people who are most susceptible to the ravages, as I say, of COVID. You know, we just can't continue like that. And so people who are charged with the responsibility to care for people who are susceptible ought to be vaccinated.
Arlene, I want to take a question to you and give you a two-part question quickly. Your reaction to the Prime Minister's announcement and Minister of Tourism as well of the COVID cost dropping from $150 US to US $50, particularly for guests coming into Grenada who are in families and have families. First off, your sector's reaction to that, Arlene. And the second question is, with the Spice opening up and Royalton, what is the sector's take on airlift? Are you seeing more encouragement and more flights coming in to support these plants as they open up in recent times?
Well, you know, we were a huge proponent in terms of the PCR tests being reduced, the costs being reduced, because we believe that that's a game changer right now. So once the cost is reduced, then at least we can compete with our neighboring islands who have much cheaper PCR testing. So we are elated. We're elated with the $50 fee. We believe that it's more affordable. We believe that more people will want to enter our shores. Also with Spice and Royalton, we're hoping to see more flights. We're hoping that we would once again, well, hopefully welcome Sunwing to Grenada so that we'd see some Canadian flights coming in, more US flights coming in, because we have more hotel availability. So we have an increased room stock. So that is always good news for our sector. And then on top of it, you know, I think what's really important, the important narrative that I really want to come across right now is the fact that tourism has done more than just, you know, it's not just about our own sector. You know, we really played our part right now in terms of volunteerism, in terms of getting involved in terms of what's going on in our nation during the spike. So when hotels were closed, before Spice Beach Resort even reopened, they were out there helping us, donating food to volunteers. You know, you had hotels that right now that are suffering, that had personnel, general managers who are on the front lines. So, you know, I wanted to get across that although, yes, we are hopeful for our sector, but tourism is not just about us. Tourism is about Grenada, and the fact that we care about our community, and the fact that, you know, we reside in Grenada, and, you know, it's all about us, and that everything is interconnected. So the safety of our citizens, the safety of Grenada is our business. So I wanted to make sure that that was said today. And the fact that, you know, many people don't know just how involved we were in that lockdown. One mobile team turned into 6, you know, and that's something that GHDA provides the logistics for. So that's been going on for the last 4 months. And prior to that, we were involved in the National Stadium, providing volunteers there, as well as in the beginning of the year, when we brought it to the Radisson, that was also brokered through GHTA and our initiative. So with all of that being said, you know, we are hopeful because we believe that we are hopefully turning a corner for Grenada as more people get vaccinated. We believe that more people will come to our shores. More people will know that Grenada is a safe destination, that once they arrive, that they will be in safe hands, because we are all in this together.
So my final question to you, Arlene, is this: how is the winter season shaping up in terms of booking for your members? And with the logistics challenges that we see now for food and everything else that comes in, are there concerns about the sector in terms of meeting the demands if the winter season proves to be a positive one for your sector?
Well, right now there's still a slow upkeep, you know, an uptake in terms of the amount of tourists that are coming to our shores currently. But I believe that in time, once we get more positive stories out there in terms of what we're doing here on the island, we will see an increased demand of tourists on the island. So for instance, like we said, with the reduced cost of PCR testing, the fact that our vaccines might be accepted in the UK as well, I believe that will help us to improve in terms of the arrivals that come to Grenada. And I do believe that we will be able to meet the demands in terms of the farming as we start to look ahead. I heard the senator earlier, and in terms of working together with the agriculture sector, in terms of working with our local farmers, in terms of getting involved there, in terms of using what we have on island within our sector. I believe that together we'll be able to do that successfully.
Thank you.
All right. I know that you have organized the volunteer efforts, and so you brought your expertise to that. I'm sure you want to give a couple of people thanks before you leave.
Definitely. I'd like to thank, namely, SGU. I'd like to thank the Ministry of Health, many doctors, nurses, as well as many of those in the tourism sector. So True Blue Bay Resort, Spice Island Beach Resort, Calabash, Glenelg, Spring Water. We'd like to thank many of our tour operators and many of those who are retired and are actually out there on the front lines, those who've actually decided that they wanted to change their travel trips and just stay behind and help us. So we are truly grateful to each and every one of you. And we just wanted to say a hearty thank you to each and every one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much, Arlene. I appreciate all that you do, and you continue to support your members and allied members, and of course, all that you're doing to head up the volunteers for our COVID relief efforts. And Randall, continue to be Grenada's #1 volunteer. You'll pass the baton on to someone in the not too distant future. Yeah?
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for the invitation, and it's wonderful to be here.
You're absolutely welcome.
I
Take
spare
care.
you tonight, Randall, so go back to you.
Oh, you spare Randall? All right.
I know you will note your time.
Great. Have a good evening.
Yes.
Thank you so very much, and stay safe. It's now
Take care.
We continue with Perspectives Prime, and we introduce our next panelists. They are small business owners. Of course, this pandemic is really taken a hit to small businesses. We're going to speak with Shelley Waldron. Shelley's a makeup artist, and she's the owner of a beauty studio. And of course, she also does some retail. Her business is called Elan Cosmetics. And to Robert Steele, you know him as Bobby. He owns a Rumors Bar, and he's a promoter and heavily into entertainment here in Grenada. Good evening, Bobby and Shelley.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, good evening. How are you? How are you both?
Good to be on the program. Very informative. I'm enjoying it.
Great. Wonderful. Hey, Bobby, you looking like if it's 6 o'clock in the morning. That's a lot of light.
Yes. I'm in my living room and just as my luck.
No, you stay right there. No, I'm just teasing you. You stay right there.
All right. This should be better.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelley. Today I looked at your Facebook page and I saw you say you're so happy to be back at work. Tell us why.
Well, I'm a busybody. In addition to not being able to earn, just having to stay put wasn't an ideal situation for me.
Mm-hmm.
I like to work and earn. Yeah.
Right. And in terms of your small business, because you are a small business owner, and of course, small businesses really come in for a hit because of the impact of COVID. Talk to us about some of the, the moments that were not, that we probably wouldn't want to go through again, and just how you're mapping your recovery, so to speak, or moving forward.
Okay. Well, I prefer to emphasize the going forward, right?
Yeah.
The month that we were, at home, it actually, put what I do and the fact that I'm self-employed into greater perspective, because it basically is up to me. It's up to me to decide how what changes I make to ensure that my business remains viable in the pandemic situation, right? Realizing that COVID probably is going to be here with us for a while, and I'm in business to succeed. So I had to, on my own, sit down and decide, okay, how do I spend this time? And for people in the industry like me, what standards are there, that we can follow, subscribe to, that can make our environment safe for ourselves and for our clients. So that's what I decided to do during the period I was not able to work.
Okay, great. Bobby, you?
Well, I mean, you have to take this opportunity really and truly to rethink, what are you going to be able to do? Because even though we are coming out of it right now, it looks like if we're going to, get ability to be able to work again, we're still going to be working under very, very, you're in a bar business. Being able to be open till 5 o'clock in the evening when we have a crowd in Grenada that are more nightly, go out at night. It already tells you that you're going to have to be very creative in order to be able to survive. You know what I mean? So it's been a month of thinking about that, thinking of other areas, of what other business can be out there, because you have to be prepared that this, at the end of the day, what we are facing here, and if we looked at all the doctors and everybody has been talking to us, we have actually just gone through our phase one, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Right? It's very likely that, we all pray that that does not happen, and that we can get the young people out there and get them vaccinated and, to avoid that. But in reality, we might be, in a small window here of where we have to try and capitalize as much business as possible to get us through the next close down that potentially is right in front of us,
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Mr. Campbell?
Bobby, look, clearly, as a bar operator, entertainment professionals in terms of your business, clearly the COVID-19 is you taking a hit. What are some of the what are you thinking about in going forward in terms of, as you look at the government policy, the restrictions in particular? Are they adequate? Are you think they're more severe? What additional advice would you give to the government in this regard?
Well, look, I think, most people know that I have been quite critical of the government over the last, few months, in terms of the approach to getting people vaccinated. But I have to say that yesterday, I think that the Prime Minister was, totally on. Totally on. It's been like, if you look at it from 3 weeks ago, this is a complete 360. I don't think there was a single person out there that expected what we heard yesterday, right? So first and foremost, I have to commend him, because I say, if you're going to be critical of when, then you have to also be able to praise when it's done the right way. And I think yesterday was definitely a step of positivity and a step in the right direction of how we have to go about this, in particular in relation to the mandate for vaccination. I, as a bar owner, as all bar owners out there, the present time that we are allowed to operate at is really and truly is not conducive for us to really do business. We're going to open the doors, but really and truly that is just, we need to get to a part that at least the time frame would allow us to go. But we understand, at least I understand that it is a step-by-step basis. Firstly, I believe that we now have to see, it's one thing to announce what the mandate is, but now how do we implement it? We have to really understand, we don't have a vaccine passport as yet, right? So what is the procedure to do this effectively in terms of people coming vaccinated to venues and stuff? So, I understand that time frame. I do hope that as we go forward, we would see that curfew time raised for sure. In particular, if we're keeping this mandate in place, then I think that we have to allow it to actually work, you know?
Thanks. Ms. Waldron, you talk about your loss in terms of revenue income, your small business as a business owner. Have you been able to access the government program, the stimulus fund or the recovery fund as it's otherwise called? And if so, what was the process like for you? We don't have her.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. Yes, I'm saying I only found out about the availability or the opportunity to make an application last week. So late last week. So that is something that I have on my to-do list definitely to help me to cushion the effects of still having the day-to-day, the operational expenses. To cushion the effects of having no revenue for that period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Waldron, I was very intrigued when you said that you took your 4 weeks at home to think about how you could do your business differently and to have it survive in this COVID environment, which we all talking about as a new normal, and how we're going to go forward with this, and understanding your type of business, it's close contact. And the question to you is, what have you come up with in order to survive the next few years as we go forward in your particular area of expertise so that you can have consistency of your business?
Okay. Even prior to COVID, I have put a lot of emphasis into, providing a safe environment for both myself and my clients. So what I can tell you now is that emphasis is even more heightened now. That I have been able to find that there are actually operating standards for persons like myself who want to operate in the pandemic scenario, which the sanitation procedures now are they take more time, but actually today. As I opened today, I had my first client today, and I had a chance to put my new procedures into practice and realize it can work. I actually felt like my client had a safe encounter with me, and I felt like I was able to protect myself as well. So these are things that I don't see myself stopping. This is what I can see myself going on in the future to maintain the high sanitation standards in my business.
There is a school of thought in your particular business that an alternative way to make revenue, apart from meeting clients personally and dealing with their beauty needs, is to get involved in virtual training in the sense of meeting with clients virtually and advising them on particular aspects of maintaining of their own beauty, apart from just physical coming to your facility. Is that something that you think have room, or is there room for that development?
Well, there is room for it. There are persons who have actually reached out to me about providing some of my classes that I usually offer online. In the process of trying to work out the dynamics of that offering that to make it worthwhile, because it's really a hands-on business in terms of how you would teach someone, and there will be the challenges. There are some persons who actually need the presence, while some persons will be able to pick up by just demonstration. So it is definitely one of the ways that I can see myself supplementing income and kind of diversifying as well.
Right. Good. Bobby, my question to you is on safe zones. Do you believe, as Trinidad has announced safe zones and bars opening and other aspects opening, do you believe a safe zone aspect of policy in Grenada will work for you in order to get your clients in more in the evening and producing a so-called vaccine passport?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I absolutely believe that what we are entering here is the way to go. I believe that we cannot continue to keep our economy closed. I think that we have to move forward. Yes, the masks are important, the sanitation is important, but let us be honest. Ranulph spoke to this before, and I must commend them. I'm really, really glad to see this approach from them as well, because every side, every single party, I would say, offhand, I'm quite disappointed for myself that the entertainment sector has not taken more of a lead, because many of our entertainers know that to go outside there and perform, they need to be vaccinated. Many of our entertainers know what the platform is, and yet I don't think we have enough of a voice from the entertainers going out, because they're the ones, let's be honest, the young people of Grenada follow the entertainers. These are the people, they have more power in reality than the politicians, right? They have more power. And it is these people that we need to get saying the message. They're out there, they're seeing what's happening. Look at right now, how many artists from around the Caribbean are all out performing, all outside there in the States, performing and making a living for themselves, right? They're all out there. But they know what we need here, and yet still we are not seeing that voice. We're not seeing it coming. We have a promoters association, and yet still the promoters association is remaining silent on such an important issue. And you know, we talked earlier, right? We talked a bit earlier about the old people that we have lost, the elderly people that we have lost to this already. But let's not forget, we have lost some young people too, you know. Just the other day, we have lost a 25-year-old student, I understand, from SGU, right? 25 years old, right? I mean, we have to understand that this thing, yes, it primarily targets people who have comorbidities and stuff, but the reality is it attacks everybody, right? And when we are commending, I also want to take the time to commend as well Shelley, because Shelley has taken a position of updating every day and sticking to the positives, and I think that is what we need to do as well. You know, we need to make sure that people understand what are the positives that could come from this, right? I believe wholeheartedly that we have a window right now. The Prime Minister has given us an area to come in, and this is a time that we have to do everything we can to get everybody in Grenada vaccinated, because we don't want to see more people dying. All of these elderly people who have given their whole life, sacrificed their life for these young people to go to school, to have jobs, to look after them. And we've lost so many because we as a nation couldn't figure out to vaccinate already. You know what I mean? We need to do better than that. We need to care about each other more than that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bobby, how are you figuring out, because I know you're very innovative. So how are you figuring out, you know, the Lime by rumors to close at 5? When the Lime starting? 2, 3?
well, let me tell you what I mean, just offhand. We have to be creative, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I'm going to be using the next couple of weeks to do is mostly get my staff ready, trained, ready. So we're glad for the business. It's going to be, you know, in terms of time, we do expect that it's not going to be much business, but it's to get the staff back in, get them back feeling positive, and, you know, hope for the Prime Minister to, in another couple of weeks or a week, you know, let us see a little bit.
Bring it to 9 o'clock.
That we have to go to full open next week.
All
But
right.
at least we can gradually see it, you know, increase so that the business can actually survive. And there's one last point I want to make about that stimulus package, because it's something to look into. And I only found out this today, right? For instance, the people who, these businesses now there's some support. It's a tedious process, right? I would be honest with you, staff are having a very hard time, you know, getting it done, but hopefully it will come to pass. But I just understood today, for instance, that if your business opens back, even though you cannot take back all your staff being operating only quarter of the time, right? So a lot of my staff will still not be able to get back to work, right? I've only been able to take on a couple because of the hours we've been able to open.
Right.
But because you're open back the business, no staff, none of your staff, even though you might not be able to bring them back on, will be able to access that stimulus once you open the business, even though they're not coming to work, which is a little bit unfortunate. And it's something that we need to look into and address.
Right. Well, thank you so very much, both of you. And any parting shots for us, Shelley?
I would just like to say to the public, we have to survive. We have to realize changes are necessary, and we have to protect ourselves from this dreaded COVID. And I would like to urge people, whether if you have medical concerns that are causing you to be hesitant, that you have a consultation with your medical practitioner, because the way to get out of this is for us to be vaccinated, so that we can lessen the burden on our hospital system as well as our economy. That's how we move forward.
Yep.
Indeed. Thank you, Shelley. Bobby?
I want to say this. Let's all set a goal. Let's set a goal. The Prime Minister of Antigua said he's not going into the new year. How about we in Grenada set a goal that we are not going to have a second phase? We're going to do what's right. We're going to get vaccinated. And we're going to start the positive from now. We're not going to wait. What do we have to wait for the new year for?
Yeah.
Let's get it done. We can get it done. We are a small country. We can get our entire island vaccinated in no time at all if everybody just gets behind this.
Right. You're right. Let's make a soca. No second wave.
No second wave. That's it right there. Right there.
Thank you so very much, both of you, and best wishes as you move forward in your business. And appreciate you coming on. Have a good one and stay safe.
All the best.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. We've been speaking there with Shelley Waldron, small business owner, and Mr. Bobby Steele. Bobby also is a small business owner and a promoter. And waiting in the wings, we have who's next with us? We should have Mr. Clinton Bailey. Mr. Bailey's an Undertaker. Yeah, we're going into the serious side of the dong side of the thing now. Mr. Clinton Bailey, and we should have the Vice President of the National Bus Association with us. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening, Clinton. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you as well. Mr. Mackenzie, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I am doing fine.
Wonderful. It's a
Very
pleasure.
nice program. We getting some showers of blessings.
Oh, we're not hearing it in here, so you enjoy it for us in the meantime. So, Mr. Bailey, I know it's been quite a busy time for you. Currently working in a situation, in a circumstance. I'm sure that even if you're an Undertaker and you've seen so much over the past how many years, this time must be a little different. How is that for you?
It is totally different, Brenda. Brenda, thanks for having me on. Just to share whatever you are asking, but this is a serious time. It has changed my whole outlook on life, and I've seen bodies in my life, but for this past couple of months, it's been overwhelming. It's been overwhelming. It's been challenging. The logistics has changed tremendous from doing 36 to 40 bodies a month. We're doing that in a week.
Wow.
The logistics have changed.
Wow.
Clinton, I want to quickly ask you a question, and I want us to put it at rest. There are a
Let's
lot of
go.
people out there who are saying that government fudging the numbers with the deaths. There isn't so much people who have died, and it'll be good to hear from a third party. You're not a government person. You're not a doctor. You're in your particular business of expertise. Are these numbers being fudged, or are these not the real numbers from where you sit? And you just one Undertaker in the business. There are others. Well, what is your take on this thing that people are saying that we making up these numbers and all these people are not dying?
Well, no, let's put it to rest in truth. The people are dying. I must say, that has been happening. Right now, where the government dashboard is, it's almost correct. And I say almost correct because they've been calling at the end of every other day or every 2 days, 3 days. Every morning they've been calling to and asking how many deaths you had last night that did not come from the hospital.
Right.
Because that's what was being left out. The bodies that were picked up at home.
Right.
And there have been quite a few.
Right.
So that's what's been happening. But the dashboard is almost correct.
Right. I'm happy that you put that out there and that we could diffuse that situation. What is the impact for your business in terms of vaccination and your staff and, facilitating the funerals? How has that impacted what you do? And I mean, with the timelines that we have now, that must have a financial impact on your business. How is that for you?
Well, I'll tell you, I am leading by example. I took my vaccine in New York. I went with my daughter and I was up there and she encouraged me to take it and I did. So I'm fully vaccinated. There are certain other members of staff. We had a staff meeting and we said to them, hey, look, it's your choice, but it's a safe choice to be vaccinated because you are in the front line. In the funeral home is the front line. So you need to take it that serious part of your life and make sure that you are protected. Some said yes, some said, nah, we're going to think about it. So I'm working on something.
Funeral home look to mandate vaccination?
I am not that into the mandate, but I would just try to convince people that yes, it is to save your life because each one bring one. And I am saying, look, if taking a little shot could save your life, please do. Because Grenadians have a whole lot of underlying causes that we are seeing coming out of the woodworks now, as once they catch the COVID, what they're dying from, pneumonia, diabetes, all these kind of things are showing up, and some of them not even knowing that they had these underlying causes. And the financial impact, well, what has been happening is that for the month of August, September, and going on here now, everything has been like triple, quadrupled, and we're seeing the florists are doing pretty good, the grave diggers are doing pretty good, and it's just going. We have reduced to help help people deal with the costs. We have reduced some of our service prices to facilitate, because we know it's a tough time. People are dying that they didn't expect to die right now. So some of them has not been preparing for this kind of thing, right? So we have reduced a lot of our services to facilitate and to make it, pliable for people to be able to afford.
Excellent, Byron.
Mr. Woodruff, good evening.
No, Woodruff.
Mr.
Sorry,
Mackenzie.
yes, Mr. Woodruff.
Not God?
No, Mr. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie is there.
Yes,
okay. How are you, sir? Good evening.
Good evening, it's Mackenzie.
Right, yeah, good evening. I want to really congratulate the bus owners for the way they've managed, the way they've responded, and certainly presently with insisting on the protocols in terms of hand sanitization and face mask wearing on public transportation. But here's the question for you. Do you believe that there is an opportunity for some buses to operate with vaccinated passengers only?
If there is an opportunity for buses to operate with vaccinated passengers only. Yes, there is. People that coming from the airports, because there are people sometimes that are required. The bus operators pick up people that way. Also people that coming from doctors and so on. That's a opening there that you could have the buses. We have passengers who are vaccinated and bus operators who are vaccinated. Yeah, I think there's an avenue there.
School children are out at the moment, Mr. Mackenzie. school children make up a significant portion of your transport population and your capacity. Would you like to see school children get back to school? And for that, would you agree that we should enforce mandatory vaccination for school children?
I am not against people being vaccinated, but it's the NBA belief and our belief that it's a family decision that has to be made, because that's our position on that. We tell our operators that, listen, the vaccine is out there and it's a personal decision that you have to make. We consult your family. So we didn't take a stand as to say you should take it or you should not take it. But what we did, we facilitated information. We got people to come on some of the virtual meetings that we'd have and to make presentations as to the benefits of the vaccine and so on. So with that said, I personally would say that's a family decision for the school children to take it, to as much as we would like them to return to the classroom.
Right. How has COVID impacted you, Mr. McKenzie?
Well, I'm a survivor of COVID.
You are?
I am a survivor of COVID.
Wow.
In the time when the NBA took the stand to choose life over livelihood, at that time I recently tested positive for COVID.
Wow.
And it was not a nice experience.
Wow. So happy to be talking to you now.
Were you vaccinated?
I had no idea. Were you vaccinated?
No, I am still not vaccinated. I was thinking about it. I was getting some counseling on it and get the relevant information as to if I shouldn't. And eventually, I happened to have it. I got it before my decision would have been materialized. But I survived it without taking the vaccine.
Would you recommend people to take the vaccine based on the experience that you just went through?
Well, everybody wouldn't be as fortunate as I am. Everybody probably wouldn't be maybe as healthy as I am too. And everyone has different complications. So what I would suggest that you speak to your doctor. I always believe in that. Speak to your physician and get advice from that.
Right. So, COVID will be here for a while, and there's a possibility that, God forbid, it could swing this way again. So in terms of weighing your risks based on what you just went through, are you more inclined to probably seek additional information to help you make a decision to take the vaccine when that time arrives?
Well, I did that because even after I was tested negative for COVID, and I should say, I had a little issue. I believe in the science, but there were people actually, after 14 days, I think people are given clearance. After 14 days when I was tested, I was still positive.
Right.
So the viral load stay in certain persons longer because it took me 2 additional days to be tested, and then I was negative.
Right.
And after that, about a week after, I went to see the doctor because I was having still pain in the shoulder, chest area, and back area. And the doctor said to me that is actually post-COVID symptoms. Even if you're tested negative, you still sometimes the symptoms stay with you for a while. And something that I probably would need to get some clearance from, or I would suggest that the health facility and fraternity, like I'm talking about the doctors and the ministry and everybody should be singing the same song, because I think often you tend to be a little bit confused in terms of, for instance, I went to find out as to how long do I have to stay before I actually get vaccinated. And oftentimes you would hear maybe some people say a month, you hear 3 months, and but from the doctor he said 3 months. So, and I only bring that point so that we should be singing the same song. Is that a month or is that a 3 months? Because that is tend to be confusing.
Listen
and there's
to your
another thing
doctor.
that after, I think you probably possibly have immunity for about a year. And we're not hearing that. So then we hear about vaccinated, people who've been vaccinated and to vaccinated events or to go to restaurants, you probably would have to be vaccinated. Now all this is common. But if you survive COVID, and I'm not saying that one should not be vaccinated, what I'm saying is that to me, is like surviving is already, you build some immunity.
Right.
And in my investigation or my consultation, you have immunity as to up to a year. You know, Ministry of Health could clarify that, but in my consultation with the physicians, that's what was said to me. So I'm saying, and I only bring that again to say that we should be singing the same song. I think too much different type of information is coming out.
Right. Just help us up now. How are the buses operating? What are the general membership saying? And how, since yesterday, since everyone is back on now, since yesterday today, how's the general public reacting? And just tell us what would you like the general public to know? When they come onto your bus, what do you want from them? And what are you, as the National Bus Association, what are you guys going to do to ensure safety?
Well, what we have done already, when we had suspended our operations, was to put in place proper protocol, because a lot of our operators was falling sick to COVID. We lost operators to COVID also. But I think the message went out, and we see big improvements in terms of how people are operating. The operators, even the public, I think they're a lot more sensitized. There's one or two persons that you probably would have to tell, to put on your mask. And okay. Most of the operators, we have to police the buses.
Right.
Oftentimes you have to look back in your mirror, and somebody might, sneak the mask down or try to eat something and so on. So I think these are some of the challenges that we have. But the majority of persons, I think what's been happening and what's been seen in the news, a lot of persons have been lost and losing their life and so on. I think people take the initiative and to protect themselves by wearing the mask and to also protect persons.
All right. Excellent. That's great going. Great to hear. Well, thank you so very much, and continue to stay safe. And thank you so much for sharing your COVID experience with us. I had no idea when I started this interview. So thank you so much for being so open with the information you shared.
Thanks for having me, and you guys stay on the safe side.
You too. God bless.
Thank you.
Clinton, thank you so very much. Anything you want to leave with us, Clinton?
Yes, I think Grenada should go out and get vaccinated. I've seen a lot of my friends, close associates, leave this life because of their hard-headedness. Don't want to go and get vaccinated. Go get vaccinated, Grenada. It just might save your life.
Coming from an Undertaker,
yeah,
that is a message.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Clinton, best wishes to you and your team. And Mr. McKenzie, best wishes to you and commiserations on the loss of your members from the National Bus Association. Have a good one.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night. And I think we're now ready for our final panelist.
Yes, finally.
Is that person there?
Mr. Julian?
Yes. Yeah, is he there? So we say a special good evening to somebody that Grenada knows, who needs no introduction. Good evening, sir. Good evening. Need to put on his mic? Oh, so that'll be hard to carry on a conversation?
Yeah.
No, okay. Oh, well. We just take a quick break and we'll be right back. Right back.
Mike.
For persons with symptoms of COVID-19, testing is done within 5 days of the start of symptoms using a SARS-CoV-2 antigen test. If the result is positive, individuals are required to isolate for 14 days. Day 1 of isolation is the day of confirmation with a positive test. Retesting is not required for release from isolation. Once persons complete the required 14-day isolation, they can resume normal activities, observing routine public health protocols. If the result is negative, a PCR test will be done for confirmation. If the PCR test is positive, the individual is required to isolate for 14 days as above. If the PCR test is negative, the individual will be released from quarantine and can resume normal activities observing routine public health protocols.
Get vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back. Well, regrettably, we can't bring in our last guest because we're having some technical difficulties, and that happens from time to time. But we've had a big size program. It's been quite a long night. So thank you so very much, gentlemen. Before we go, any parting words? Well, not parting words. But yeah, parting words, not final words.
Yes.
I don't like to use the term final words, especially these days.
I think from all our guests, we had one central theme running through, and that was people, let's go out and get vaccinated. I think Bobby hit it on the head in that, let's set a goal. Let's get this country vaccinated before we get into the new year.
Yeah, I agree. It's the only way out, Chris. The message is clear and it's consistent, There's a tropical wave approaching, I understand. Get home safely.
Yes, certainly.
We've probably been impacted by it already.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, thanks everyone. We'd like to thank all of the guest panelists this evening: Dr. Malara Alexis, Dr. Lisa Radix, Gerard Sinclair, Mr. Richard Duncan, Senator Roderick Sinclair, Colin Dow, Bobby Steele, Shelley Waldron, Arlene Friday, Randall Robinson, and Mr. Mackenzie from the National Bus Association, and Mr. Clinton Bailey. For everyone here, our production team, Nathan Benjamin for streaming, Blondell George direction, Kirk Oliver on camera, and Richie Oliver, our executive producer. Expert panel of Senator Christopher Diali and Mr. Byron Campbell and Brenda Batiste. Thank you so very much for tuning in, those of you who tuned in this evening to Perspectives Prime. Yeah, see lots of you saying this should be every Wednesday. No, we don't think so. Pop in every time that we have something special to do. See us again on Monday for our regular Perspectives. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay dry. We have some rains outside. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.